Didn't you also say the right Mike Doyle?
Yeah.
That's a good play on words.
I feel like the shadiest thing, and I don't know if y'all correct me if you've seen anything else shadier, but like in Minnesota too, that Republican super PAC that's encouraging people to vote for the deceased legal marijuana now candidate in her memory, which is just really manipulative.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine how her family feels about that.
3 minutes to video.
All right, we
That
have.
may be at the top of the list.
We're getting closer to 11 o'clock. We're gonna have a video that lays out the states that are with an 11 p.m. Eastern poll closing time. So any sort of last things here in the final couple minutes before that we're watching. We haven't talked really anything about the Michigan, competitive Michigan House races. Is there anything there?
Votes are real slow there.
Really?
Very slow,
Yeah.
yeah. It's
Forget I asked. Maine, we haven't talked about the first district, which is not competitive, was called for Shelley Pingree. We're still waiting on the second district in the governor's race. Illinois, we have competitive races there. It was fast and furious there for a bit. You know,
I mean, what a calling their shot at the New York Times Siena
Yeah.
poll. They caught a lot of flack for that poll that had David's up 14. But, you know, they...
Well, we had to talk about the trajectory of Kansas 3 last cycle.
Yeah, so we started Kansas 3 out in 2020 as a toss-up, and I think by the end we got it all the way to solid Democratic. Ultimately, I went back, she actually won by 10. So ultimately, I think that was the right place to do it, even though, like every other Democrat in the country, she underperformed her polling quite significantly. But
All right. Anything else hanging out there?
looking
I'm
around.
just like, is it going particularly slow? Or is this just like election night and we always forget because it's so exciting when it gets exciting?
There's an empirical answer to your question in terms of number of races that would have been called. I feel like
Yeah.
it's probably more normal. I mean, we have taken some Senate. There are some. Well, 2 of the bigger Senate races, or at least one, the New Hampshire, that's off the board. But hopefully, maybe the next hour.
can we just talk about how Ron DeSantis is leading by 20 points?
How much of the vote is in?
That's a good question, but I want to
I mean,
say...
either way.
I
like,
want to say most of it.
I have a feeling he's going to talk
Crazy.
about that here as he heads
We've
to
got
Iowa tomorrow.
7.6 million votes counted. ABC says that's 94% of expected.
So, like,
Decision Desk says it's 107% of
Okay, well,
All right,
oh, sorry,
go ahead.
I was saying, as this is happening, Decision Desk is they're saying that their chances of winning, the Republicans' chances of winning a House majority are dropping according to their model. That their mean seat projection is down to 224 Republican seats, which again is still a Republican majority, but it's just wild that we're talking about. Oh yeah, no, sorry, I saw Ray's call. I didn't. It's just wild that like we're talking about DeSantis up 20, and also talking about like how small will Republicans' majority be. It's wild.
Is there a percentage on that estimate right now?
I can't tell, but I will let
Let's
you know.
talk about it at the top. We're going to run this video with the 11 p.m. states, and then we will be right back.
We have finally arrived at our final major poll closing of the night, coming up here at 11 p.m. on the East Coast. Precincts are closing at 11 p.m. Eastern Time in the continental United States' 3 West Coast states, California, Oregon, and Washington, as well as in the state of Idaho. This may come as a surprise to those of you not paying attention, but the race for governor in Oregon is rated as a toss-up by Inside Elections, and the Republican nominee, State Representative Christine Drazan, leads both 538 and Real Clear Politics' polling averages for this race. Unpopular Democratic incumbent Governor Kate Brown is term limited, and Democratic nominee Oregon Speaker of the House Tina Kotek has been unfortunately tied to Brown, which could spell major trouble for her. Notably as well, centrist ex-Democrat state senator and newly turned independent Betsy Johnson is also averaging over 15% in most polls, throwing yet another variable into what should already be one of these midterms' most unpredictable races. There are 5 U.S. House races to keep an eye on at 11 p.m. as well, starting in California's Central Valley, which has been known to swing wildly in midterm elections. A combination of low Hispanic turnout and a Hispanic Republican trend make the 13th district an appealing GOP target. Though it voted for Biden by double digits, Republicans outvoted Democrats in the primary here, and Democratic nominee Adam Gray will not have an incumbency boost over Republican John Duarte. That is not the case, however, in the 27th district, where incumbent Republican Mike Garcia won re-election by a few hundred votes in 2020, even as Biden won his district by 11%. He will face another major challenge here tonight, as his district is now Biden plus 13, and he faces the same opponent, Democrat Christy Smith. This district should be one of few serious Democratic pickup opportunities, though we don't expect to make a call in this race anytime tonight, given that California is very slow at counting mail-in ballots, and it should be very close. That said, the state of Oregon is really making a case for the most intriguing midterm state, as it has 3 extremely competitive House races. Starting in Oregon's 4th, longtime Democratic incumbent Pete DeFazio is retiring, leaving this Eugene-centered Biden plus 13 district open. Democrat Val Hoyle will need strong turnout in the college towns of Eugene and Corvallis to win, and given the party's historical struggles with midterm turnout, especially with young voters, some GOP analysts are cautiously optimistic about Republican Alex Skarlatos's chances here. That said, the 5th district is Republicans' better pickup opportunity, as progressive Jamie McLeod Skinner defeated longtime incumbent moderate Democrat Kurt Schrader in the Democratic primary, and will have to defend this open seat against Republican Lori Chavez DeRemer. Chavez DeRemer will need to run up turnout in rural Lynn and Marion counties to flip this district, which may prove harder without Trump on the ballot. Finally, Oregon's 6th district is probably the least likely Dem-held seat to flip of the 3. It's a new district as Oregon gained a seat in the House following the census, and it would have voted for Biden by 14 points in 2020. Democratic nominee Andreas Salinas will be counting on Democratic trends in the Portland suburbs to keep this district out of reach for Republican Mike Erickson. And that does it for which races to watch at this poll closing and what to keep an eye on in those races as results start coming in. Now let's go back to the Inside Elections team in the studio.
All right, welcome back. Instead of introducing everyone again, we have, I think, a race call.
We do. You want to take it away, Jacob?
Can you do it actually?
I can do it. We have a few. Okay, so the big one is Amelia Sykes, Democrat, is projected to win in Ohio 13,
Yeah,
which was...
Let's talk about that one for a second. So
Okay.
This is an open seat that was basically Congressman Tim Ryan's home area. It includes the Akron and the Akron area. We had it as a toss-up race, and this is the Democrat Amelia Sykes defeating Madison Gilbert, the Republican in this race. So DDHQ calling Ohio's 13th district for Sykes.
And this is the 3rd toss-up called tonight?
I think maybe only the second.
Second? Okay.
Yeah. And both, so 2 out of 20 toss-ups, 2 have been called, 2 both for Democrats at this point.
Okay.
Did we have another one?
We have a few. Kevin McCarthy going to win re-election. Nancy Pelosi
What?
will win re-election.
What?
Gavin Newsom is going to win re-election.
But what's the margin?
Oh, but there's a big one. Do you see this one?
Tell us.
Oh, yeah. That was a good
Chris Pappas is winning re-election in New Hampshire's first district.
New Hampshire's first district for Democratic incumbent Chris Pappas. This was a race that we had rated as tilt Democratic, with the Democrat winning. So everything so far is falling as, actually I need to catch up here. We have 11 out of 83 races that are called.
None of the toss-ups yet, though.
Two
Or-
toss-ups,
oh, okay.
two Democrats, two races, two toss-ups have been called, both for Democrats out of 20, but the other ones have been falling, falling as expected or following the ratings, which the ratings continue to show Republicans with the advantage, but it's a much closer race for the House than a Republican wipeout.
So with that New Hampshire call, that means that Maxwell Frost is the first and only Gen Z? Cool.
Because the Republican in that race, Caroline
Caroline.
Leavitt, is
Yes.
25 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Republican nominee. All right, we skipped over a bunch of. So did we get all the all the calls there at the top?
I think that was all of them. I was scrolling through, and then when I saw Pappas, I was like, oh.
What is in California in the governor's race with Governor Newsom? What is the margin there? What's our estimated vote? Because I know there was concern that he was underperforming and maybe dragging down Republicans in the 5 to 6 competitive House races. So do we know anything about the governor's race that might tell us about the House races? I'm looking to the person that lives in San Francisco.
Yeah, I'm trying to see. I don't know if there's actually like much of any like vote actually reported yet.
Oh, is this stream down?
Yeah,
That's what I
getting
see.
some
Yeah,
Okay.
I think the stream is
text from
down.
people that it appears to be down, and I just tried the link myself,
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not.
and I think it's
not
down.
up.
And I emailed everyone.
Oh.
Did the link expire or something?
No, the stream is down.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm still interested in how Newsom's doing, but
I don't know.
NBC called for Padilla.
for Petilla, oh,
For Padilla.
California.
Yeah. Amy Walter, that's an exit poll.
Decision Desk just called Vance.
Damn it.
We're back?
Are we back?
All right.
Okay.
Okay, there we are.
Are we live?
All right,
Okay. It's
so
a
you-
new stream though.
It's a new link.
Oh, it's a new link.
It's a new link.
Okay.
Oh, crap.
All right, so it seems like we're here. New link. And big race call. Decision Desk is projecting JD Vance is going to win in Ohio. This is probably the best news Republicans have gotten tonight. Tim Ryan winning would have completely opened the Senate majority, or options for the Senate majority for Democrats. So this is a big deal.
How many toss-ups we called?
Wait, how many House toss-ups?
Yeah.
think
We're at 11 out of 20. No, sorry. Toss-ups, 2 out of 20. 11 total House races out of 83, 2 toss-ups.
So the old link does not work anymore.
Yeah.
Should we tweet
Where's
out
the
Do we
new
need
link?
to-
Can somebody
Yeah.
tweet out the new
I'm
link?
about to tweet it out.
Awesome.
I was
Sorry for-
told if you refresh the page it's currently on, then it takes you to the new one. But it still would be good to
Yeah,
put
that
out.
didn't work for me.
All right. Back up.
This fire is raging.
Oh,
What's up?
did Elaine Loria, reportedly, according to State's newsroom, has conceded?
AP just called it for Kiggins.
Okay. Sorry, Jacob, did you? I'm trying to catch up on making sure the folks who are not with us right now
Yeah, I
Our-
tweeted out the link.
are finding us.
Yeah, I'll reach
I think it
out.
would help if the
Yeah.
folks on the other side of the wall did. Look, I will just say it. Maybe this is a jinx, and it'll come back to bite me. let's pay attention to Wisconsin. Because if Wisconsin ends up, if Democrats can pull off a Hail Mary in Wisconsin, and they're looking strong in Pennsylvania, all of a sudden, I mean, that's the ball game then, even if they drop Nevada and Georgia.
Well, talk about where Wisconsin is right now in terms of estimated vote and what we're seeing.
So in the Senate race, I see Wisconsin's right now only 1/3 counted, and then it has Ron Johnson up by like 1%. And then in the governor race in Wisconsin, Evers is up by 6 points with also 1/3 counted.
You know, I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
should be open-minded.
look, I think that a lot of folks wrote Mandela Barnes off in like late September after he gave up his polling lead. Republicans hit him hard. He had real vulnerabilities. They knew exactly what they were, and they hit him hard over the head with them. And as I think is too often in this business, people took what was a very slight Johnson advantage and decided that meant the race was over, when in fact, I think it's still been highly competitive since then. You know, I don't know if Barnes is going to win, but I think when we're looking at the math of the Senate majority, we absolutely have to be keeping Wisconsin front and center. If Democrats can pull something off there, this night changes dramatically for them.
That's a really good point, because Ohio was always, I mean, we think so much about Tim Ryan as a candidate, who I bet you if we looked at our baseline averages, Tim Ryan would probably, at the end, do pretty well. But Wisconsin is just a much easier state for Democrats than Ohio. So we are seeing things generally fall in line on like relatively partisan lines, which I think is what we're seeing. You know, like the Biden vote kind of held and the Trump vote kind of held. Then Wisconsin, I mean, it was a narrow Biden victory, but it was a Biden victory. So definitely, I think that's a really good point. But then again, I also think it's like, we haven't seen enough data tonight to change projections, you know, on what happens with this Wisconsin race.
Yeah.
It's just, I think that's a really good question.
Yes, I was looking at to see if there's any Wisconsin counties where almost all the votes have been counted. I saw two. There was one called Door County, which Biden won by like 1.5 points, and it's going for Johnson by 0.5 point. And then there's another county, where was this? Florence County, where it looks like Johnson's outperforming Trump by 5 points. So just based on those two, it looks like maybe a slight Johnson advantage, but definitely one to watch.
In order to go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say about Ohio. I haven't been paying too much attention to it, but I was just looking at the New York Times Needle estimate, and they estimate Vance by about 5 points. And yes, it's a Republican win in a state that maybe some people saw as potentially competitive, but that's actually less than Trump won that state by. He won it by 8 points in 2020. So the fact that Democrats are outperforming Biden in a midterm year where Biden's approval rating is like 43%, I think is pretty significant.
And especially because Sherrod Brown is up in 2024, right?
Right, yeah.
Correct.
So like if you're Sherrod Brown right now and you're watching results come in and you're seeing, you know, Tim Ryan, this super kind of, I mean, incredibly well funded, I think it's pretty objectively talented politician. If you're seeing him lose by 10 points, like, you might not really want to do a campaign in 2024. But if he's losing by 5 points in a rough year, then could somebody like Sherrod Brown, they might think it's worth the
Right.
effort.
Plus, yeah, just the fact that Brown is an incumbent, so that'll give him a few extra points.
Exactly. And if it's like a presidential year, so it might be a little bit more partisan, like it might, you know, I don't think Biden's going to win Ohio in 2024, so that's tricky, but again, I think it just, an open seat in Ohio would be really, that would, I think, decrease Democrats' chances even more, and these results could encourage an incumbent to run again. So that's important.
I want to quickly talk about a call, even though it's one of those solid flips in Georgia's 6th district. TDHQ has called the race for Rich McCormick, the Republican. So this was as expected, but we had it as in our likely Republican category because it was a flip. But now we have 12 out of 83 competitive House races that have a call. Nothing has broken. Neither party has won a race that the other party was favored in, but we still only have 2 out of 20 toss-ups that have been called. So Georgia's 6th district for Rich McCormick, who lost last time, came back, different situation, won a competitive primary, and now is going to be a member of Congress next year.
Is he the first comeback kid of the evening? Maybe. That's,
Yeah, we have so few races that have been.
yeah,
Anna,
that's
Anna Paulina Luna.
Sure.
Oh, right, yeah.
She,
So no, he's not.
How is your phone doing?
It's fine, do you want to plug
Could
this
I
in?
plug? Yeah.
Yeah.
Rather than getting a whole other charger.
Yeah, please do. Mine's
One more thing I was
super
looking at for Ohio. We just talked about how statewide Democrats are doing pretty well. But earlier I mentioned the Inside Elections baseline, which is just like an average of election results. It looks like Democrats are also overperforming their benchmarks in both the 9th and the 13th. So just under the hood, there's also a pretty strong showing.
So as we've seen the 9th and the 13th go, so goes the 1st district with Steve Shabbat. Where does that
That one.
stand?
Let's see here.
Feels like he's
Landsman-
in a lot of trouble if these other races are.
Landsman has a slight edge at the moment. But yeah, like you said, certainly if Sykes is winning in the 13th, you know, it's just kind of funny. It goes to show that nothing is ever settled in politics. When this Ohio congressional map came down the line, this was drawn, of course, by the Republicans on the backup commission, and the state Supreme Court ruled it unconstitutional, that it was an unconstitutional gerrymander in Republicans' favor, but they did not set a deadline to redraw the map until after this election. And it looked like this could reduce Ohio Democrats to just 2 of the state's congressional districts. You know, the
Joyce
Cleveland,
Beatty in Columbus.
the Joyce Beatty in Columbus and Chantel Brown in Cleveland, and it would have ousted the Tim Ryan seat as well as Marcy Kaptur. And we're now on the precipice of Ohio potentially returning Chantel Brown, Amelia Sykes, Marcy Kaptur, Joyce Beatty, and potentially Greg Landsman in the 1st district. So 5 of the state's 13 congressional districts, which, again, when we're talking about expectations,
That's also accounting for they
qualifies
lost
a
a
dummy man?
district.
and they did lose a district, yeah. So
Is it less of a dummy mander or more about Republican candidates? And
Yeah,
at
if
least
you had
2
had
of those
a competent
districts.
a competent candidate against Marcy Kaptur, what would have?
And I think
What would
Ohio
have happened?
13, you can.
There was some criticism
Obviously.
of Gilbert that she was trying to run more as a celebrity, or not running, doing some of
Yeah.
the nuts and bolts campaigning.
I'll just point out some other outlets have called Kathy Hochul. I don't.
We also have a question from the chat about Colorado 3, whether that's actually in play now. So I know, Aaron, you talked about that a little earlier, but just throwing that out there if you want to take a look at that as well.
Let
Sorry,
me
go ahead.
see. It does look like it is in play as of like half an hour ago, when last time we checked.
Yeah.
Oh, hang up. It's not showing up on our dashboard.
There you go.
Let's see. Yes.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah, it looks
or-
like Frisch is still ahead by about 4 points. Frisch is the Democrat who's challenging Boebert.
Are we still missing? There's one county that you were talking about, a +10 Boebert County that was outstanding. Is that still?
Yeah, that was the one with the largest number of outstanding votes. I think that's still the case. No, now there's a couple of others that are more Democratic leaning that have a significant amount of outstanding votes as well.
So what would why would that be? Like what?
I mean, she
How would
did.
this?
She went through a primary where she obviously that brought more attention
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
her differences with a good chunk of Republican voters.
Do you know much about this Democratic It's okay if you, I mean,
Adam
for-
Frisch, he's a
Frisch.
former Aspen city councilor. I think he's like he's rich. I know that. He beat two other candidates for the nomination. There was a progressive favorite named Saul Sandoval and a like wannabe influencer.
He was the one who had the poop ad.
Yes,
Go
poop ad
on.
guy.
Do you remember
Um,
this ad?
No.
Terrible.
A lot
that
of
one you
ads
can
with
queue
poop
up
in
to
them
play?
this cycle.
I don't want to watch it.
But Frisch,
It's scarring.
he's tried to. I think he calls himself like a fiscal conservative. You know, he's a businessman. He has tried to cultivate a much more moderate image. Obviously, Lauren Boebert faced that primary from State Senator Don Coram,
Right.
and I think he took at least 30% of the vote.
Yeah.
And he endorsed Frisch in the general election, which I think is notable. You know, again, I think a lot of this comes down to the statewide. You know, if Governor Polis is winning significantly, and Michael Bennett obviously with that race called already, but you know, the third district is not so Republican that a Democrat can't carry it statewide, and if you're carrying it statewide, then it opens up other possibilities, right? With 64%, that's a different outlet, so I won't cite them. But Jared Polis could be en route to, you know, certainly a 15-point victory, if not more substantial. So, you know, I would be surprised if Boebert loses, still, but it's explicable.
Yeah. Also, not to change states again, but looks like we have a lot of numbers in Texas 34 now.
Yep.
With 92% in estimated. Gonzalez is up with 53%, and Flores, who is the current incumbent there, who won the special election earlier this summer in a much more conservative-leaning district, is at 44% right now. And this was one that we had kind of been moving slowly to the right over the last couple of months, just because a lot of polls were showing that Flores had a lot more momentum. She was better known than Gonzalez because she had just won the special election, and Gonzalez was representing a neighboring district, has not been in Congress for too long. And so I think Republicans felt really confident about their ability to win there. But it looks like this one may be less competitive than folks may have thought initially.
Well, to me, maybe Fung in Rhode Island 2 or Magaziner in Rhode Island 2 would be bad news for Flores, that having a strong profile may not be enough to overcome the partisanship of a district. That if
Right.
Gonzalez ends up winning, then that would fall in line with the Rhode Island 2 where Democrats are winning Democratic districts, even though
Yeah.
by presidential numbers, even though Flores is more of an incumbent in this district now than what
Right.
Gonzalez is.
So this was like, I think it was a Biden +4 district initially, and now it's like a Biden +15, so it swung several points towards Democrats under the new map. And so it made sense that Republicans were able to win the special election earlier this summer under the old lines, but I think it was always going to be a lot harder, and I feel like we were a little slower to maybe move it towards the toss-up category initially, just because of that. But also polling in South Texas is difficult.
There were some folks who were kind of just not pulling. They just admitted it was going to be a
Yeah.
competitive race and just spent money instead of knowing that the polling was going to be difficult.
Right. So it's hard to judge. It does look like in Texas 15, which is a Trump +3 district, the Republican running there, Monica de la Cruz has a strong lead right now.
Where are we in New York?
So while we're still in Texas, it also looks like Ken Paxton, the Attorney General, is going to win re-election.
Oh, yeah.
Not
Still
surprising.
under indictment.
No.
Still under indictment.
I have to fact check that.
New York.
No call in New York. Is that we still don't have anything in New York?
Doesn't look like
Yeah,
it.
Kathy
Schubert.
Hochul has declared victory and is on her route to give a victory speech.
Okay.
Several other outlets have called it for her. She currently has a lead.
And it looks like just Pennsylvania and Georgia, votes are continuing to come in. It's just super close. The last decision desk reported Walker had, 1.72 million, and Raphael Warnock had 1.70, with 95% in. Seeing very close numbers in Pennsylvania as well, with about 80% in. So that's why there's not a lot of conversation there. It's just because it's super close, not because votes aren't being counted.
Yeah.
So one thing about Pennsylvania that I've been looking at is a lot of these completed counties. So earlier I was talking about how Fetterman was making gains over Biden in a lot of the rural white working class counties. So that's definitely continued. But there's also been an interesting result from Allegheny County, which is the Pittsburgh area. And there it also looks like Fetterman's outperforming. So that county was Biden plus 20 in the last presidential election, and now it's Fetterman plus 28. So he's outperforming by 8 points, and it continues this trend we're seeing county by county, where Fetterman's doing, in some cases, much better than Biden did the last time around. So Fetterman continues, at least from what I'm seeing, to look like the favorite in Pennsylvania. Now, I guess Oz's path would be some of those counties in the east, maybe some of the Philadelphia suburbs, he could overperform. But he'd have to do really well there, I think, to counteract some of Fetterman's margins in some of these like western and central PA counties.
I'm trying to think of what type of voter, the mindset, I guess, if they're just so uneased about the economy that they want to voice frustration against the current administration, but it seems like we would be seeing that in other rural areas as well.
Right.
That wouldn't be a unique dynamic to the Philly suburbs.
Yeah, I guess you could make the case that maybe Fetterman's outperforming in western Pennsylvania because that's where he's from, and then with some of these white working class counties because a lot of people thought he would have extra appeal there, but then maybe lose some ground in the suburbs. But Oz would need some pretty strong performances there, I think, to win.
And we don't have a call from Decision Desk in Pennsylvania's 17th district, but Chris DeLuzio is declaring victory, and he says that Jeremy Schaefer, the Republican, called him to concede.
So, for context, this is an open seat, Pennsylvania 17, basically Connor Lamb's open seat, a
Yeah.
Democratic open seat, that a Democrat just took a concession call from the Republican, Jeremy Schaefer, but no official call in the race yet. That's a race that we had rated as a toss-up, but we'll hold steady on marking that off the list, but certainly a lot of key indications that Democrats are going to hold Pennsylvania 17.
It does look like Trump is celebrating the loss of Joe O'Dea, the Republican in Colorado, who did not support him enough. Throwing it out there.
Which is just evidence that
Oh, we have a call. Sorry, we've
Go,
got a
do
real
it.
one. All right.
got a live one.
Decision Desk HQ projects Ted Budd wins North Carolina, Republican, who is filling open seat. Sherry Beasley was kind of had some late momentum, especially after the Dobbs decision. There was some hope among Democrats that she could harness energy from especially suburban women in North Carolina. But looks like Bud he won.
So once again, a call, DDHQ called the North Carolina Senate race for Republican Congressman Ted Budd. We had that rated as tilt Republican. Republicans are holding Richard Burr's open seat, and so it continues to come down to the key races that we're getting some good competitive races, but not yet at the core of the battleground of Georgia, Pennsylvania, Nevada, Arizona, and Wisconsin. But all the other ones we're starting to get, we're narrowing it down to those key ones.
Have we already made jokes about how Bud with 2 D's is replacing Burr with 2 R's?
Is that a joke?
No, that was a
It's just funny. B-U-D-D-B-U-R-R. It's just like neither of them needs the extra. That's like basically the same name.
I guess with like the
just
the
different
D
double
and the
consonants.
Neither
R, you
candidates
could-
in Wisconsin governor need the S at the end of their last name.
No, yeah, that's true.
You're right, yeah. Mm-hmm.
What do you
Wait,
mean?
why did
neither
I
of them mean?
You can remove the S in Evers and the S in Michels?
Michaels.
Michaels, okay. And then it's still a
Exactly.
name.
I do hate that he spells Michaels like that. Because I
the
was
point
Someone with the
in my
first
head,
name
I was
Michael, I
saying
agree.
Mitchell for so long.
Am I the only? I actually think it's like if you put Bud on like a chalkboard and then had Burr under it.
I see where you're coming from.
Thank you. Okay.
Because they're both like
Oh,
3
and,
letters, they have
uh,
similarities.
Something.
I don't know. Again, not a call. Want to be clear, not a call. But Greg Landsman in Ohio's 1st District has declared victory and said that Steve Shabbat, the incumbent Republican, has conceded to him. This is a pickup for Democrats.
So that's Ohio's 1st district. Yet another toss-up. So we have 2 toss-ups that have been called officially out of 20. Both have been won by Democrats. We have 2 more where we have concessions from candidates that would be in favor of Democrats. So that'd be 4 out of 20. Just again, to lay things out, Democrats need to win 19 out of 20 toss-ups and all the races where they're favored. But so far, we haven't had any toss-up races going for a Republican on the House side. Oh, you're right. So there is a little bit in California. Is there in House races, or is it just not even worth talking about yet?
While we're looking at that, looks like Dr. Oz is about to speak at his election night party. Just keeping an eye out.
Good to know.
And to to emphasize what Nathan was saying there, right? It is very important that Democrats win seats like Ohio's 1st district, which is a pickup for them if they want to maintain the majority. Given that, like in Florida, Republicans have several auto flips, Tennessee as well. Democrats have far fewer. There's a race in Illinois, the 3rd district. North Carolina's 14th, but by and large, Democrats do not have any guaranteed pickups across the map, and so finding anywhere where they can flip Republican-held seats is integral to the path to maintaining their majority.
And they've got a couple of open seats, like Illinois 13 and Michigan 3, that they should be favored to flip, but they're still competitive. They're like in the lean and tilt D category for us.
Yes.
And Jacob, I know you said that Landsman announced he was winning. Did you mention that Shabbat? He says that
Shabbat conceded.
Okay,
yeah.
you did. Okay.
Oh, Shabbat did concede already.
Well, that's what.
That's what
Landsman
Landsman says.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
Shabbat has not confirmed that to us personally.
Okay.
Anyone have
He
his
has
number?
a blog. Have you ever seen it?
Who?
Shabbat.
No.
I remember he did. I saw.
But why would I know that? That's a good. Also, how do you know this?
I accidentally ran into it like a year ago.
You know what? I bet you that blog
What
will
did he-
stay live even if he's no longer in Congress.
It was something that was like he wrote about something that was like really random that I like. It wasn't like I was looking for something about him. I was just like, oh, Steve Shabbat's blogging about this. I cannot remember what it
Fun
was.
find.
Do we have anything? I noted that, or I saw that in Montana, in the 2nd district. Now Montana has 2 districts with reapportionment. Matt Rosendale was the Republican congressman, and what was the at-large district is now declared the winner in the new 2nd district. But the 1st district has been competitive. Do we have anything? Is there anything?
See
that tells us
1%
what the-
in
1%.
estimated.
Let's dissect.
Stop the presses.
Dissect that 1%. All right. well,
Hold on, Deer Lodge has 71% in.
With how many voters in Deer Lodge?
2,619.
There you go.
What is this?
And
So going back to Pennsylvania real quick, we continue to get more counties, and at the moment, I calculated that there's 27 of the 28 counties that have completed their count in Pennsylvania are counties where Fetterman has outperformed Biden's numbers. So looking really strong for him there. We still don't have anything fully counted in southeast Pennsylvania, which is, I think, what we probably want to wait on before anyone would call it for Fetterman. But 27 of 28 is looking really good for him.
So for some added color for the evening, Annie Carney, Washington Post reporter, New York Times reporter, congressional correspondent, currently at the Kevin McCarthy party for tonight, says it's incredibly quiet, very sparse, very young crowd, and people are steadily leaving.
Not unrelated, Decision Desk HQ projected Greg Glansman, who we already mentioned, Democrat, is conceded, and another big one, Decision Desk HQ projects that Governor Kathy Hochul, also one we had already mentioned that she had announced or she had declared victory. So two that we had mentioned earlier that look like they're now official. It would have been, I mean, if Kathy Hochul had lost, that's a big wave, especially with somebody like Lee Zeldin, who is not exactly a Charlie Baker or a Larry Hogan. But there was a lot of close polling around Election Day, and I'm really interested in digging in on where and why and how that happened. And part of that's going to be waiting to figure out what the eventual margin is for her.
Well, and those, the governor's race is significant not just because it's the governor of the state, but we have 3 New York races in toss-up, the 22nd, the 19th, and the 17th. We have 3 more New York races in tilt Democratic, New York 4, 3, and 18. So you have 6, and then 1 all the way in likely Democratic. So 7 New York races that were Republicans thought they were surging in. Many of them were Biden 55, 54, 55 districts. Those look difficult based on what we know tonight. So I don't know. Just that we don't know the calls in the individual races, but the governor's race stands out as important. There was supposed to be the Zeldin, or the anti-Hochul, anti-crime, anti-New York City, or the New York City, there's a potential New York City wasn't turning out, but those things are to be holding up for Democrats.
So now we have 3 toss-ups that have been called, I believe, with
Correct.
Ohio
So,
1.
Yeah, to update, 3 out of 20 toss-ups have been called, all 3 for Democrats, and they need to win probably 19 out of 20 to get to the majority, or to keep the majority. And overall, we're at 13 out of 83 competitive House races have been called.
And no races have gone opposite to our expectation.
Correct. And so that's for those of you who are watching and maybe we're expecting the red, some sort of Republican surge.
Tsunami, if you will.
Tsunami. I'm not going to say it.
What type of water?
This actually has been falling close to what our ratings in looking at these races individually, what we thought were going to happen. And so far it has been a pretty good night for polling and based on quantitative data doing these individual races. But again, we're at 13 out of 83, so we have a ways to go.
So you said that Democrats need to win 19 toss-ups in order to win the majority. There are 20 total.
They need to win all the races that they are favored to win and 19 out of 20 toss-ups.
Okay.
And so far they've won. The races that have been called, they have continued to leave that path open.
Okay. So it's still really, we're just waiting. This is not a sign that Democrats are going to keep the House majority. This is just a sign that it's probably a sign that we're going to have to wait for a while for a House call. It doesn't sound like we're going to get one tonight.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
North Carolina 13, are there updates there? Yeah.
I just saw a little unclear.
Tell us what you're talking about, though.
North Carolina's 13th district, which is a toss-up, newly drawn seat that we're accounting for as a Republican-held seat. Let's see.
Seeing getting close to an answer there.
I can't find it. Why is it not? Oh, why it's not on the sheet. Well, this is still showing. I'm seeing something about all the precincts being reported. Let me pull up the North Carolina election results. We don't have a call.
Another good tweet.
Is the upshot here, but according to the North Carolina State Board of Elections, in the 13th district, and this is just pulling straight from the North Carolina State Board of Elections website, with all but one, I don't know what this last precinct is. Oh no, that's statewide info, excuse me. Precincts reported 129 of 129. Wiley Nickel 51.32, Bo Hines 48.68.
Wiley Nickel is the Democrat.
Wiley Nickel is the Democrat.
But
So-
it's precincts, we don't know for sure an estimated vote, is that the?
I mean, the state isn't doing estimated vote, so I don't have a, but I mean, this includes election day of, absentee one stop, absentee by mail.
Bo Hines has run in like half of North Carolina's congressional districts because he hopped around so much as the map was changing. Looks like, did we talk about Hochul?
We did, and now it also, just an update in Georgia, it looks like Warnock is up by, if my math is correct, 4,000 votes with 97% in. I don't know if, it looks like the Libertarian is still with 2%. Like, it just seems like, I mean, maybe Warnock, like, if maybe one of them could pull this off without going to a runoff, but I don't know. It's all so close right now.
Where,
Oy vey.
which
This is Decision Desk HQ's latest tweet is about, has the numbers in Georgia.
Raphael Warren.
It's
Yeah, I
like,
mean,
I don't know if that
AP
gets to
is running a
50.
little ahead.
And to be clear, it's like, yeah, like Raphael Warnock is 49.1
Yeah.
and Walker is 49. Like, this is like a one,
Yeah.
this is not a big, this
Wow.
is less than 0.5%. It is 49 to 49. So let's round. So that's a big deal. Looks like Decision Desk projected Jen Kiggins won the election in Virginia's 2nd Congressional District, which we had alluded to earlier. This is Elaine Luria. And was that a toss-up or was that tilt?
It was a tilt
The
R.
So we're
Tiltar.
so it's still at a point where all of the toss-ups that have been called have gone to Democrats, but again, it's only 3. Losing people like Luria doesn't give Democrats much wiggle room in the toss-up category. So there we go. No place closer to calling that race for the House.
So is that
We
the
got
first
nothing.
official DDHQ Republican flip? Like of a toss-up or tilt?
I think you're
Yeah,
right.
it's a flip.
Nice.
Because because Shabbat was a dim flip. First dim flip.
Well, it depends on how you count Florida 5.
Well, that's why I said any
Wanna
of the
count
tilt
Florida
or the
five.
Can we not
toss-ups.
talk about Florida 5 ever again?
Redistricted. When are we? Who's even the incumbent there? We're never going to talk about
I
him again.
might argue that Al Lawson was the incumbent there. and
Okay,
so it's
fine.
less than- but we can have a
We
Florida
had
5
Rutherford.
erasure moment.
We have Rutherford listed as the incumbent on our website.
Yeah.
So
But
that would
that's
not
where
Yeah,
he's
that's why
running.
I'm confused. I was like, who? I've heard about Lawson. But I don't know.
Blame redistricting. Don't blame me. Don't blame me for
Redistricting
this.
is, I'm always happy to blame redistricting.
I'm so happy it's kind of
Um,
over. I don't want to say it's over
It
because
won't
it's
be
really,
over,
it's really
you know.
not.
It's never over. Looks like Stacey Abrams is making a statement, maybe speaking to a crowd.
It looks like she suspended her campaign.
So not conceding.
Which is, yeah, I wondered about that, like that wording.
She
Did
said- yeah,
she concede?
she says that voters didn't choose change tonight, according to Minnie Raker at Time. So it seems like it's closer to concession than in 2018.
Which had no concession.
Which had no concession.
And Governor Roy Cooper is saying that Republicans will not win a supermajority in the North Carolina state legislature.
Huh.
There was a chance that they could have gotten a supermajority there, but they did not.
The state
Huh.
legislatures aren't our focus, but do we have any idea what's happened there? I assume that Democrats now have a trifecta in Maryland and Massachusetts,
That's
but
correct.
anything else?
Republicans have supermajorities in Florida. I mean, the big one to watch there is Michigan.
In Minnesota, right? Too?
Minnesota, yes, Democrats are trying to flip back the state Senate. Republicans want to win the state House.
And I don't think New Hampshire, were Democrats seriously targeting that this year?
No, I
Those
don't think
bodies?
so.
Okay. That was a big Republican flip.
There's
in
a
2020.
race.
Donald Trump just threw Don Baldock under the bus.
Oh, how long did that take?
Don Baldock was a very nice guy, but he lost tonight when he disavowed, after his big primary win, his long-standing stance on election fraud in the 2020 presidential primary. Had he stayed strong and true, he would have won easily. Lessons learned.
So I just want to make clear that whatever happens tonight for Republicans, it will be a winning night for Trump. He will make that narrative
100%.
happen for
Yeah.
himself. Everybody who won because of him. It's just, and what will be interesting is seeing whether Rick Scott goes along with it, because we know McConnell's already pushed back a little bit. A little bit.
Let's see, we've got a bunch of votes in Maine.
Oh,
We've also got a race call.
Yep, go ahead.
Iowa Senate. Decision desk calls it for Grassley. This was a likely Republican race that we moved from solid Republican to likely Republican about a month ago after seeing some polls that showed it might be tighter than we'd expected, but this is not a surprise.
Yeah, so once again, Iowa Senate race, DDHQ calling for Chuck Grassley. A win for Grassley, a win for Dairy Queen, a win for his
The
Twitter
History Channel?
his
the
Twitter
History
feed.
Channel.
A win
Yeah,
for
Dairy Queen,
pigeons.
because he goes to dairy. He's a Dairy Queen guy.
And a win for Ann Salzer. Her last poll got it. So.
Yeah, that's
The
true.
one a few weeks before was a little tight, but that's okay.
It was, but I think it got the Franken, the Democratic share.
So where is
right.
Franken? Because Franken was at 43 in that poll. Is he at 43?
Yeah, I don't know. Let me see.
Did we ever call Pennsylvania 12 Doyle?
No, I think
We haven't called
a
I
that
think
yet.
that's been
network
called.
that rhymes with CNN, I think it's called it, but we have not.
No, it just looks like Doyle conceded,
Doyle
according
conceded,
to Public Source Pennsylvania. But we do not have an official call there yet.
Even under the weird circumstances, it was still rated likely Democratic, so it doesn't help us with our toss-ups.
I can't find the Iowa Senate race. I'm under
Florida-
uncalled race. This is my fault.
It's 11:45.
Florida really is its own
Here we go.
country.
Well, if
Ron
you're-
DeSantis is winning by 20 points.
Do you know who's won tonight? The winner of tonight is Ron DeSantis.
The winner, yes, absolutely.
Trump was always going to make himself the winner.
I don't think Trump can make himself the winner. Ron DeSantis just won Florida by 20. He can try. He can try.
I'm not saying Trump can, we can get pretty dark with that joke, but let's, just objectively, Democrats might not have a terrible night. I wouldn't say that makes them winners. Republicans should have just romped considering Biden's approval rating. But DeSantis, this is,
But I'm interested to see, I mean, the news about over the last well, a couple days and then a couple weeks with DeSantis, where a couple weeks ago, some of his advisors were anonymously talking a big game. They're gonna take Trump head on. They're full frontal assault on Trump's record, and then the last couple of days they were anonymously being concerned that Trump called him a name. They were like, I want to see what DeSantis, when he really starts taking
That's
heat
true.
or criticism, how does he perform? Because no one's going to hand him anything. I mean, winning a huge re-election bid is, but there's going to be 15 people that are going to run. If Trump doesn't run, there are going to be 15 other people running for
Oh yeah, and I think
president.
like whether or not he actually like, I think objectively, looking at the numbers, he won. Looking at how things shake out over the next 2 years, still Trump's party. But more relevant to tonight, looks like we have a call for Kansas's third district. Sharice Davids has won re-election. That is a Democratic hold in a tilt Democrats category.
And the margin is not that far off from that poll, the Siena poll.
From which poll?
The Siena poll that
Oh, the Siena poll?
everyone was
Yeah.
deriding, because currently Davis with 94% estimated, and Davids has 55%, and Adkins has 43%. I believe the poll showed her up like 55 to 41.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
they got David's number right.
Okay, that's good. I mean, that's
A win for
Okay.
polling.
And with
that's a win.
with,
A
with,
win the real
with-
question is
a win
just
for
polling.
Siena.
with more than 95% of the vote counted in Kansas Gov, according to Decision Desk. Laura Kelly is 49.9, Derek Schmidt is 46.9.
What's funny is I would kind of think it's an upset if like Laura Kelly lost. Like that would, I don't, what do you guys have it rated as?
It's tough.
Toss-up.
A toss up. Like that would be, there might be a lot of weird things happening tonight, I guess
Yeah.
is what I'm saying.
Well, as we get closer to midnight, I'll prepare you guys.
Oh,
We're gonna,
sorry, can I do one more race
yeah,
call?
100%.
Decision Desk projects that Janet Mills, Democratic governor, will be reelected in Maine. It looks like Paula Page will not be a comeback kid tonight.
So once again, the Maine governor's race, calling it for Democratic Governor Janet Mills. This race, I feel like for the whole cycle, the data kept pointing to Mills winning, which Mills is not projected as the winner, but all the anecdotal stuff, I would do multiple speeches or events and be like, oh, LePage, I'm hearing about LePage, he's coming back. I'm like, I don't know, I hear you, I'm listening to you, but I'm also looking at what the data were showing, and now Mills has been declared the winner.
I spent a bit of time in Maine over the last year, and I can tell you there were many LePage lawn signs and not that many Mills lawn signs. So
Well, that's the metric that matters.
In Arizona, it looks like we've got a bunch of vote. And where are we?
it looks like Mark Kelly and Katie Hobbs are both getting the same number of votes right now.
Exactly, which I think
Interesting.
is, and they're both up by a
Interesting.
lot, and we would expect this because Arizona is one of those states where we're expecting a red shift. We saw this in 2020, we're going to see it again. So right now, they're both up by about 14 points. That's going to come down, but it's very important for Katie Hobbs to be running that close to Mark Kelly. That is a good sign for her because we view him as an ever so slight favorite. If she can stay within like a point of him, that's good news for Katie Hobbs. I think there's been a lot of certainly folks on Twitter were very down on Katie Hobbs over the last couple weeks, very high on Carrie Lake.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see, like in places like in Pennsylvania, right? Like we really expect, like we're seeing Shapiro overperform Fetterman, and I was expecting to see a similar dynamic in Arizona, and still could happen, but we're not seeing it yet.
So we're getting close to midnight, and I think we're getting close to our final on-camera moments. But I want to go around. I'll give you guys a minute or 90 seconds to think. But go around and kind of do takeaways thus far into the night. But we'll obviously be keep following us on Twitter and following DDHQ's Twitter for the official race calls. Anybody feel ready? I'm putting people on the spot, but.
I'm always ready. I always have
All right,
thoughts.
we'll go Leah, and then we're gonna go around. So Leah, what is your takeaway?
I mean, everybody already knows my takeaways because I've been saying them a lot throughout the evening and stream of consciousness as we get closer and closer to past my bedtime. But I think the big question tonight were the fundamentals that have dominated midterms for decades, for about a century, would those hold? And we're seeing that some of them it looks like historical trends. We're still going to see, most likely, given what we've seen so far and how your projections have been accurate so far, that Republicans will probably have an edge in the House, will probably still win that majority. But Biden's approval rating does not look like it's having the same effect as it would 2, 4, 6, 8 years ago. And I do think that means that we are in a different political environment. As I'm saying this, it looks like Decision Desk is projecting Wiley Nickel in North Carolina. That's another R to D flip. I don't know what category that was, NC-13?
Toss-up.
So now we are at a fourth toss-up, 4 out of 4 going toward Democrats. You would not expect that in a year where Biden's approval rating is so low and inflation is so high. Maybe voters are thinking about things like abortion, democracy, etc. We'll see.
Yep. Aaron, what are you thinking right now?
I don't think it looks like a red wave. I know we've all been joking about who was going to say that first phrase.
Drink. Yeah.
All night. But yeah, I think if this was a red wave, you would have expected Republicans to be winning seats like Ohio at 13, North Carolina 13, Pennsylvania 17. Like, these are all districts where Biden's approval numbers are really low, and you have like fairly generic Democrats running against fairly generic Republicans in most of these cases, and you would think that the generic Republican would win out at the end of the day if this is going to be a great night for Republicans. But it doesn't appear that that's the case so far, and I think Lurie is really the only Democratic incumbent who's fallen yet. Doesn't mean there won't be several more, but yeah, that's my early takeaway.
We got a bunch of vote in Illinois 17th.
Okay.
Open seat, Sherry Bustos.
Toss-up race.
Hmm?
I said toss-up race. Go ahead.
Toss-up race. Decision Desk is showing 181,000 ballots counted. Eric Sorensen in the lead by 3,000 ballots, about 1.6%.
Sorensen being the Democrat.
Sorensen being the Democrat.
Okay. Bradley, what's your takeaway right now?
So as both of them said, a lot of the states are kind of going how we're expecting. A lot of the districts are kind of going how we're expecting. But the two that so far haven't, I guess, is Florida is a statewide, and then if you look down in some of the South Texas districts. So something that I'm going to be looking at, especially as tomorrow and more results come in, is how Hispanic voters in California and also in Colorado's 8th district end up deciding. Because even though there seems to be a pretty clear picture in a lot of the states, once you go on the southern border, there starts to be a little bit of a divergence.
Jacob, what do you think? Big picture or small picture?
Look, I mean, I think Florida's a different planet than the rest of the country. They've shown themselves to just kind of be politically separate from everyone else at this point, immune to the political winds elsewhere. I still can't get over this Ron DeSantis nearing a 20-point victory. Just the last 3 Florida gubernatorial races were decided by 1 point, 1 point, and 0.6 points. And that was in a great Republican year, a phenomenal Republican year, and a great Democratic year. And now we've got a mixed year, and we see a 20-point Republican lead. It's really quite something. I will reserve judgment until New York comes in more fully. I think that there is real danger for Democrats on Long Island and in the Hudson Valley. They have 2 vulnerabilities on Long Island in the 3rd and 4th districts, and 3 in the Valley, 17, 18, and 19. We're talking about very slim margins here for the House majority. That could be the difference if things don't go well for them in an otherwise surprisingly solid night.
Ryan, what do you think?
I think overall this is actually a really good night for Democrats in terms of comparing to expectations for a midterm election when you have an unpopular president. And looking at what we're seeing now, it looks like Democrats actually might be slight favorites in the Senate. It looks like Fetterman is on track to win in Pennsylvania. This is a state that was like a 1-point Biden win in 2020. New Hampshire's already been called. It looks like Hassan is outperforming Biden. And it looks like the House is still up in the air to some extent. I still think Republicans are probably going to get the House majority. But yeah, overall, I think that Democrats should be like pretty happy with how tonight went.
Yeah, so to wrap things up about where we stand, so in the Senate, we're still missing calls in kind of the biggest five races being Georgia, Pennsylvania, Nevada, Arizona, and Wisconsin. But based on how things have broken so far, Democrats are certainly in the game and have an opportunity to maintain control. Our range of a Republican gain of 2 seats to a Democratic gain of a seat is still the most likely range. Nothing has changed. I don't think any results tonight have changed from that. In the House, to summarize where we are, we started with 83 competitive House races. There have been 16 called by Decision Desk HQ. All of them have fallen in terms of as we rated them. The ones that Republicans were rated or favored to win, they've won. Democrats are favored to win, and 4 out of 20 toss-up races have been called. All of them have been called for Democrats. And to summarize, where Democrats still would need to win, all the races are favored in 19 out of 20. But based on the small number of seats we have so far, it is still possible. It's probably more possible for Democrats to maintain the House than what most of us thought coming into tonight. And overall, I would say that these races, it has been a win for polling. I'm not talking about all polls, but our projections and analysis are based on data, both public and private, and it is holding up. It's holding up so far. So we'll see. Sometimes election nights can show one thing, and the days to come can prove another. But we have a pretty good sampling of toss-up races and Republican and Democratic seats that have gone as expected. So thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Ryan, Jacob, Bradley, Aaron, Leah. It's been fun. It's been a little warm next to the fire. But thank you all for sticking with us through this experiment. And please follow us on Twitter, as we'll be following these until they're done. So thank you very much.